Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. We're continuing on our pandemic projects, and by the notion of that, let me just reach out first and say thank you to all of our first responders and frontline personnel, whether you're EMT, law enforcement, teachers, truckers, grocery store employees, healthcare workers, nursing home, doctors, everybody that's putting their lives on the line to help us save ours. Thank you for what it is that you're doing, and together we will get through this. I'm trying to get through this as well by posting videos each day, and I just reached into my my purchases. This one came from a group of reels that I got at an estate sale. I'm looking forward to this one. This is a Garcia 3800. It's a nice aluminum spool, runs nicely, bail trip issue. The bail is not firing, just kind of hangs up there. I hear a clink clink underneath. And I'm going to take this apart. I'll show you how this reel is made. If you have one of these, you'll see how to service it, and we'll learn a little bit more as we go along. So typically what happens when the bail is not firing is it's in this release mechanism here, and I'm not seeing the spring move very well either. So I always advise folks, we're going to take this off, we got a little bit of line caught under there, but I always advise folks to do what they can in terms of oiling this up, because a lot of times this stuff will sit, it'll become very rigid, it won't move, and it'll just kind of accumulate some junk, and the next thing you know, the bail stops working. So I'm just going to, before I take anything off, I'll loosen this up a little bit, see if we have a spring issue there. And I'm just making sure that our trip mechanism is working, and we probably have a bent bail in addition to the firing. So let's go over here and do this. Let's take this off and see how far that wire is out of sync. I can tell there's a lot of tension on that wire. All right, well, we'll work on that. One of the best ways to figure out the bail issue is to take that little nut off that's holding the bail wire. Just going to use a little pliers. I should be able to just turn it with that. I don't really like using pliers as wrenches, but when it's something so small, I think we'll probably be able to work on that. All right, we're going to just remove that. It's going to go into a parch tray. It's nothing more than the bottom of a milk jug, and we'll see what happens now. So there you go. So this is why I mentioned we should always do the piece with the penetrating oil to loosen that up, and then you want to check the bail wire issues, because in this case the bail is awful stuck. I'm just going to, this is going to be in a matter of alignment. You can see we're almost off 1/4 of an inch. I'm just going to do a rough bend here for now, and we'll just see if we can't reset this and see what happens. This little cup came off. So this is my take on this one. The 3800 is that this one is the follow-on to the 308. I enjoy fishing with the 308s. This is probably 408. It's because it reads high speed on the side. But I enjoy fishing with them, and I found this one at an estate sale. It was just a whole bunch of fishing reels in the back of a shed. It was going to get torn down, and there we go. I got a bail. Simple as that, huh? And it's working. All right, so lesson learned. First, don't assume that it's a bail spring issue. Secondly, assume that there is a lot of dirt and grease and grime and buildup from the time that it's been sitting idly. Go ahead and wet that down with some penetrating oil like a WD-40, and then If you have a bent bail, you can bend it back into shape, and you can see it's got a nice arc on it now. Without a lot of effort, that bail is kind of functioning the way it should. I notice I'm loose on this side. So probably still needs a little bit more of a bend to work properly. We'll see as we try and flip this one. No, we're still going okay. So we took the torsion out of that bail, and as a result, I'm one step closer to taking this reel fishing. So what do we need to do to take it fishing? Tune it up, because if the bail is sat and accumulated some dirt and greases and the like to stop that from performing, then I can only imagine that there's some additional work to be done inside. So let's take those 3 case screws off and see what that holds. It says a single ball bearing in this one. I'm going to assume that that single ball bearing is up top. But I am curious, because this is not a Mitchell, this is a Garcia. So Mitchell, when it was going through its rounds of bankruptcy, had a lot of different iterations of the reel. And I'm just not quite sure what we're going to see there. I'm going to move my dog to off so that it goes both ways. And I should be able to remove this now. Well, we may have a screw hiding underneath here, and we do. So don't push anything. If you find that there's tension and something's not working in a case, take a look. Most of the time those are not through screws, but in this case it happens to be. So let's get that off. So this is kind of flying blind, but I did want to share this, do this reel, one, because I want to take it fishing, and two, because if you have one, that's kind of the purpose, is to show you how to do it. All right, this screw and the little washer came out. We're going to put that right back. My guess is this reel's the late 1980s. I could be off by a few years, but that's where I'm going to guess. Very simple design here. So we have an axle shaft that comes through our pinion gear. The axle shaft connects with the crosswind block up top, which is kind of stuck in the case at the moment. We'll take that out in a moment. And I also have one little washer here that we're all going to have to go take a look at and see where that one belongs. Oh, it's not. It's part of the case. I thought that was a washer. All right, pull the axle shaft. I can actually use my Mitchell tool on this, I think. I have a Mitchell tool here. Nope, I can't. It's a lesser socket. It looks like maybe a 10 millimeter. I should have a 10 millimeter on my desk here. Yep, I have a 10 millimeter. I'm going to go ahead and remove that. Mitchell makes a tool for their 300 reels, which is a 12 millimeter. So we're going to go ahead and take that off, put that in my parts tray. We're going to remove the rotor, and underneath you have your ball bearing. Now this reel is dry, and it wouldn't hurt to take this assembly off. Make sure that we oil that ball bearing and clean and grease the pinion gear. So that's what we're going to do next. Just to keep some parts out of the way, I'm going to put that rotor back in my tray. Notice this, take pictures. There's a ramp on this piece of metal, and there's a hump here, and that's what your trip mechanism is. That's the way you want to install it. You also have a stud here, which is going to align with one of the holes in that circle. So this one's kind of hard to not get done properly when you go to reinstall, but I got to be honest with you, I've seen a lot of crazy things over the years, and picture taking is always a good thing. Okay, so we're going to pull down on the washer and the piece, and then this pinion gear is actually coming in from the other side. There's a little clip here for that anti-reverse. All right, I'm going to just take a brush to clean up any residue that's left over here, knowing that bearing in the piece is right underneath my paper towel there. That's another reason why I like the parts trays. Keeps it out of harm's way, but in this case, kind of got started with that. All right, check the teeth and the spirals. Make sure that they're all uniform, not chipped or bent. This reel was working nicely beforehand, so I have no reason other than what was going on with that bail to think otherwise. It's always good to test if you can. And we'll put a little bit of grease onto the shaft here. Then I'm just going to throw that right back up and over, get it out of the way again. Here's my carrier, and then the ball bearing will sit on top of that. And I'm going to use a real oil. I like to oil my bearings. This is Real-X. It's an aftermarket synthetic fishing reel oil. I'm just going to flood that. I'm going to go ahead and put that back in. And that's our assembly for the pinion gear. Go ahead and grab that little ramp then. Okay, it's a collar and a ramp. It's got two functions to it. Find the stud, and then we can take our two tie downs, little Phillips heads. And those of you that know me know this will be an adventure. Fortunately, that collar has a little lip that I can catch it on. All right, so that's the pinion gear portion of this. I'm going to grab the rotor now. So we used penetrating oil on it. Now we're going to oil it. This is a washer that belongs on top. So we've oiled the moving parts there. We're going to go ahead and put the oil back into this one. Oil your roller and your other side attach. Now we can put the rotor back on. We have a little washer that goes next. And we have the tie-down nut. So this says this is a 5.2 to 1 retrieve, single ball bearing, and it's got a line capacity of 2, 4, and 6. So it's a freshwater in the ultralight kind of category. That's what I intend to use it for. I'm planning on taking my grandchildren pond fishing. This one should work out very nicely. Okay. So this is your anti-reverse. It's got a series of a spring in there. If I move that up now, we should be getting the click, 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 which we do. I'm just going to remove that down for now. Okay, we need to turn our attention to the main gear then. It's got a lot of dry grease. It's tight, but we should be able to work that out of there. There we go. And of course, it was stuck because this goes on afterwards. We'll show you how when you go to install that. But this has just got what appears to be some old dry grease on it. The gear itself looks like basic pot metal. I'm going to do the same thing I did with the bail. I'm actually going to put some WD-40 on there, some penetrating oil as a solvent. Come back and see if we can't clean that old grease up. It does a nice job. And then we'll come back and find that brush that I was just using and make sure that all the teeth get cleaned of any of the old grease. Otherwise you'll kind of get a wump, wump, wump feel. Very uneven feel if there was some dry grease in there. That looks good. All right, so relatively simple construction. I love simple. I think the folks that follow my channel know that if you have a simple design that works well, in my mind, that's the best thing all about. And we're going to get some grease back on there so it doesn't get sticky again in that bearing. We'll get some grease onto the teeth of the main gear. Do the same thing here that we did with that pinion gear. Check to make sure that all the teeth are uniform. And not only check from the frontal view, but check from the side view, because sometimes these warp. All right, this is just going to go back in. I know I got the grease on this earlier, but we'll just put a little bit more grease there. Now we turn this around. This is the way you would assemble it, like that. I'm going to grab that axle shaft. So the design on this reel completely changed from the 308. And the 308 kind of used those planetary gears, and the later ones used the crosswind block of the Mitchell. This is completely different. So it is a Garcia reel, and it is not a Mitchell reel. So Garcia worked with Mitchell. They were their licensed distributor in the U.S., but they were separate companies from what I understand. And I think when Mitchell went bankrupt in the late 80s, everything changed, and eventually Pure Fishing bought the brand, but nothing that they're selling under the Mitchell brand bears any resemblance to the earlier Mitchells. That's it. It's that simple. You take the crosswind arm, it has a pin on it. The pin goes through the axle shaft down below, and it sits on the piece there, and then there should be a washer. There is. That goes over the post of the main gear, and that holds that crosswind gear as it circles. You'll notice that that lip sits just a little bit proud over that arm there, and it kind of keeps it in place. All right, we have a bushing on this side. Just cleaned the case. The case was dry, so not much going on there. We already put some grease onto the arm here. Now it looks like maybe when I put the washer on, it pulled it down a little bit, so put a little bit more on there. Take your case and cover it up. Should just snap back in place. There we go. Then we need to just look into our parts tray for those 3 pieces. And then we'll just go up top there with that drag assembly. I'm thinking that I'm going to see the same thing I would see in a Mitchell. It kind of looks the same, but we'll take a look. And I don't know how I switched out my screwdriver here, but that's not the one I started with. So I can't wait to take this one fishing. It's classic design, a little bit different in the interior, but overall, for 2, 4, 6 pound fish, this is a nice setup, and it's not going to break on you anytime soon. All right, 3 screws are in. Tighten down. Take my paper towel, clean that board off. We've got our handle here with that screw that we conveniently stored right back where it came from. Bring that around to the other side here and load that in. So this is a through shaft, and again, you saw when we took the cap off, that nut was there, so it's easy enough to understand how that goes. Here's your cap. A lot of times you'll find these older reels, if you're at the flea markets, garage sales, or other places. Take it off. There you go. Wow, nice. Or missing those caps. You can't operate the reel without the cap. All right, this is a traditional Mitchell kind of style. You have a shaft below. You have your preset on your drag washer or drag knob. The drag washers are underneath. You can push this through. You don't have to, but you can. And then here's our washers above. Those washers look nice and fresh. All right, you don't need to lube this. That's your click mechanism when you're going backwards. And here's how this laid out here. We have a Teflon washer, which is the first one. And these are all clean. If they weren't clean, I would take some time and clean them up. Now you'll notice this one has a D shape to it. So there's one flat side to the post here. Gotta find it. All We have the 2 red fabric washers. They don't need anything on them. They're a hard washer. That's part 1. The middle washer is always the eared washer. It's circular in nature in the middle and has 2 points on it. That goes over and then it sits into the grooves. Like that. Last of the washers. Remember, this has got a D on it, so find a flat spot on that shaft. And now we can put our preset back. Okay, once you have your drag stack installed in, just grab your drag tensioner. Just thread that on. And the nice thing about these is that you can set your appropriate drag for you, and then you don't have to unwind it and lose that drag setting when you want to change your spool. Maybe even to just clear some line, perhaps it gets trapped under there, or change over to another one. You always have that same tension. In this case, we're going to tighten it down, make sure that I have that drag stack installed properly, which I do. And then I like to back drags off so that I don't compress them. So there you have it. You have a Garcia 3800 freshwater reel. Had a stuck bail coming in, hadn't been serviced in a while, had a lot of dry grease inside on the main gear. We showed you how to take this reel apart, how to service it, how to oil it up and lube it and get it fishing again, give it a second chance. So I hope you've enjoyed that. If you did, please like it. If you want to see more of these, please subscribe. And if you have any questions or comments about this reel or any reel in particular, then please leave them in the comments section. And I try to respond to all of those comments and answer those questions that may be out there. Finally, if you have a reel that needs to be repaired, then please contact me by email on the business card that follows, and I will provide you with that repair information. So this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Have a great day.